disciplines from upon which we will endeavor to centralize and showcase stories and information related to the lifting of historical and non-historical stones and the ongoing development and re-emergence of stone lifting culture. Welcome to episode 10 of the Stones of Strength podcast. And we got a bit of a different one for everyone here. This is our stone circle format because everybody that's on this episode is sitting here in the room in a pseudo circle like configuration. And what we want to do is a year in review, look back at 2023 and talk about some of our major wins, our fails, our takeaways from this past year, and then also a look ahead for 2024. What are the things we're excited to accomplish? And we have a fairly familiar cast of characters and then a new addition. So we've got the Caveman. Say hello, Caveman.
Hello, Caveman.
We've got Troy, who's at Beard and Boulder on Instagram.
Nice to be back.
And then the new addition to the episode for today is Brian Ironback Nedjelski. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
And Brian, your Instagram handle is?
Netterman.
Netterman. And so Brian is someone who's, he's one of the sort of key crew who is down at the Granite Garden on a regular basis and one of the foundational members of the Edmonton Stones of Strength. And so before we jump in and start going over the year in review, we wanted, Brian, you to have the chance to sort of give everyone a bit of the backstory. What's the origin of the Ironback Dwarf?
So obviously, grew up as a career mechanic, spent my childhood working on the grandparents' farms. So that's why I'm so hunched over and have a giant back, according to you guys.
And just so everyone knows, I'm not calling a dwarf derogatory. Brian is a mound of muscle. He's as wide as he is tall.
Yeah,
so.
I'm 5'4" and 100 kilos. Gives you an idea.
There you go. So.
Just retired from the military last year. Did 6 years Reg Force and then 4 years Special Forces. Took my mechanic trade to pursue that. And now I just finished school for firefighting and actually getting into the firefighting world for my next career. And love everything about strength. And did powerlifting, competed in sports, rugby, football, stuff like that. But my biggest passion, and especially in the last year, thanks to these gentlemen here, is stone lifting.
Yeah, it's actually, not to cut you off with anything here, Brian, but when I like the idea of working out in the gym a lot and did it for quite a few years. And I'd known Brian since I was 16 years old, and I saw Brian for the first time in a period of years. This would have been, I'm guessing, about 8 or 9 years ago, Brian, and you had packed on a ton of muscle. And we got started talking about training and working out and all that, and I thought I knew what I was doing in the gym, and you were leaps and bounds ahead of me. And I still remember, I wrote a program down on the days on little sticky notes because I didn't know how much information I was going to get. I still have one of those. I keep it because it was the first time that I'd ever seen an actual structured, like a properly structured workout program. And so you had kind of been my transitionary period from being like, oh yeah, I like going to the gym, I just do whatever I'm feeling that day, to like, no, hold on a second, this is what a structured program looks like. And I couldn't believe how many sets and reps and all the volume I had to do. And so you were kind of my window into actual, like, going from just, I don't want to say a gym bro, but just a guy that didn't really know what he's doing, but leaping into, okay, this is proper programming, this is how you actually gain strength and muscle. And so you were, it's awesome, man. And now it's come full circle that we're here together doing this stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I'm a big believer in you can chase weights, but at the end of the day, like, you always look at how much work you've done, like how much weight have you moved over a course of a month, right? Like, a lot of people be like, oh, I'm gonna hit this today, where it's like, well, no, like, you're probably gonna get more out of a 20,000 pound workout with lighter weights than you are with a 5,000 pound workout with few sets and just heavy weight. That's my mindset.
Yeah.
So.
It's interesting. It harkens back to something that Troy had said in the episode he was on for, when he said, he's very intuitive in the way he trains, and he's not going down to the Granite Garden and every day trying to chase a PR. If he's not feeling it, he's just going to do some working sets, do some stone rows, and kind of just make sure he's getting in the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of people, even in peaking programs in powerlifting and things like that, have trouble hitting the numbers they expect to hit on the peak days, just because, and like, one of the things Stones has taught me is that your body and the way that it reacts to weights is extremely different every single day. And so you can go in expecting to hit your peak program in powerlifting and want to hit a max single, but it might not be realistic. You might need another day or two, more food, more sleep. You could be fighting off a pathogen, anything, right? Like, there's so many different variables. And so I think, I love intuitive training. Just because it's in the program doesn't mean you need to hit it on that day.
Well, it's like the one day this summer you and I went down to the garden, just you and I was just like, just wrecked from like a whole week of training. I was doing tower runs for fire training. Met up with Troy. And then I go and pick up, we have like a little warm-up stone, like weighs like 140 pounds. And I go to pick it up and I couldn't even get it off the ground. And Troy just like, don't do it. Sit there and drink coffee. And I was like, yes, sir. So I was just like recognizing like, yes, I want to do this stuff, but also just like my body needed rest. So that's exactly what I had to do.
That's why when I do programming for guys, I'm a big believer in the RPE system, right? Because your nervous system, the amount of effort it's going to take on one day, you could be, a 6 to a 7 RPE, and another day that could be a 9. Right, and so you have to listen to your body because otherwise you're burning the candles at both ends. And not to beat a dead horse here, but that's why the whole guessing of stone weights thing is something that I really dislike. Because if you're having a good day, a 300-pound stone could feel like it's 250.
Yeah.
On a bad day, 300 pounds is going to feel like 375 pounds. Like, so it again, your body's different every single day. So
there's been days where I've one motion to 335 the shoulder, and there's another next day where it's hard to get the lap, right? So it's like, it's so crazy. I was talking to Declan, everybody knows Declan, and he just peaked, but he unfortunately missed the weight on the peak day. But I said the same things. It's like, yes, like maybe take a couple days. Like, I've seen you lift this and this and this, just like maybe your body needs a couple more days, right? Just RPE, right? Go with what you feel. It's intuitive training all the way for me. So absolutely, it's
amazing. Like, I've been working on a new stone that I have. I'm calling it the Logan stone. I'll put more information on it later, but it's about 403 pounds. I got to get a more accurate reading, and there are some days I've got it to lap a few times, but it took me like 7, 8, 9 tries just to lap it. My nervous system was shot. I just was not doing good. And then a couple days ago, I lapped it really, really easy. I didn't stand with it yet because it's brutal, but the variability that your body is on any single day is so massive. And I think we maybe discussed it on your podcast, Troy, but it's worth saying again is, we have the opportunity to have so many stones down at where we're training. And, I'm probably as guilty as anyone out there is for going, no, today I want to do something really, really cool. Maybe I want to shoulder this, or I want to plinth this or lap this, or whatever the current goal for that day is. But if my body's not feeling it or I can't hit it, then it's time to step back and always walk out on a win. So I wasn't able to do that. Well, let's get some reps in. Let's get a row max, or let's see how many times we can get this light one to shoulder. Let's work on technique, or always find a way to spin your workout in a positive manner, because that's motivation in itself, right? You don't want to walk away going, I failed what I wanted to fail. You go, okay, I didn't fail. I actually just had to change my trajectory, and just adjust on the fly, right?
I think that's a mental maturity thing too that I know I even had to become a bit more acquainted with this year, because our summers are so short. We have so many such a limited time to get down there and actually lift in the granite garden. And unless you have access to stones in your garage like you have, David, or in your warehouse like you do, Troy, you're trying to squeeze everything you can out of those workouts. And so through the year I was kind of dealing with a bit of a nagging back injury that's slowly getting better, but it was one of those things where I needed to couch my expectations and try not, if it was a day where I knew I wasn't going to make progress, at least don't force myself to be regressing, right, and aggravate something, or cause additional inflammation or injury that's going to set me back multiple weeks. And so I guess in sort of that theme of expectations, let's talk about 2023, what everyone's sort of expectations were with to get out of stone lifting as far as progression, or stones they wanted to lift, or things they wanted to do, and where they landed, and then we can jump into what people are planning for 2024.
Sure.
So we will start off with the man to my left. Not that anyone can see you, but it is the caveman. I mean, you've had a huge year, lots of huge PRs. Where did you start? Where were your expectations? Where did you fall?
Yeah, I think it's probably my most successful lifting year that I've actually ever had, and that's awesome. I started the year with Troy's competition, the Alberta Strongest Viking. That would have been, when was it this year? In April, early April?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I trained very, very hard for that. I got second. I won the first year, got second last year by 1 point, which still chaps my ass. And I really... It's not even for the title. I just really wanted to do better this year, because it was more that I didn't put on my best performance last year, and I just wanted to bring the best possible package I could this year, and I did that. I went well.
What a package.
What a package indeed. That's why I wear jeans. You can see it all. But it went really, really well. And once again, Troy ran a fantastic competition. I'm sure a lot of people have seen videos out there from the random athletes that have been involved in it. but the videos don't really do the justice to the atmosphere that you have there. And I think that's one of the things that I loved the most about those events, Troy, is that, you know, the first couple events, there's a lot of nerves, but the time we got to the throws, it turned into a 20-dude shit-talking fest, where everyone's busting, well, okay, Brian shit-talking. But, like, everyone's making cracks and jokes in between everything, and it was just so lighthearted, and of course we were all competing, but it was more we all just wanted to do our best, and there was as much congratulations as there was shit-talking, and that was fantastic, and I loved that about the event, and that went really, really well. And, you know, following that was some good momentum going into the year. I think it was maybe 1 week after that event, or maybe 2 weeks max, I shouldered the Agale for the first time. So that was my first attempt at the Agale, which is 380 pounds, and got that to my shoulder, which I was very happy with. And, you know,
that was something you had set out as being a goal for that year.
Yeah, like, to be honest, like, at that point in time, it was like almost like a lifetime goal. And when I say lifetime, I was like, okay, if I ever get this, I'll be very thrilled. But realistically, in my head, I'm like, damn, if I can get this by the end of summer, that would be rad. And then sure enough,
You did it before summer.
Well, yeah, like it was, I was very, you know, very fortunate. I was very happy with that. And, you know, the first time I got that stone on my shoulder, I got it up for just half a second, arm went out. I didn't fully control it, and I wasn't pleased with that. So I did go back 2 weeks later and got it full control, which I'm still very happy with. And, you know, the rest of the summer was filled with, you know, every 2-3 weeks I would hit a big PR of some kind, whether it was a plinth or whatever it was. So, you know, I was very, very happy with the way this year went. You know, I can't do this stuff without you guys around me. The amount of times that we would go down there and we would just have fun, and the lighthearted encouragement and ball busting and everything. When you have an environment like we have down there, it makes lifting just so fun. And, you know, maybe taking the longer breaks in between reps because we're laughing our asses off so much is good. But, you know, whatever it is, there's just, it's something special. I think it's fantastic. And so, you know, I wouldn't be the lifter I am if it wasn't for all you guys. And so it's really fun. And like Troy, you and I go down there together a lot, and we would be like, what are we doing today? I don't know. Should we maybe try a teddy bear squat and then jump to a plinth afterwards? So we would just go down there and mess around. And so many people would be like, well, what are you guys doing? What is this? But they're like, there was a method to each of it. Each of it was a great training implement in itself. And if it wasn't, it was fun as hell, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, sorry to like butt in.
No, go for it.
Please, I've talked enough.
That's the beauty of stones over gym lists is even when you're pulling back on days that you want to be lighter, you can still do cool shit every single day, right? Like, you don't always need to shoulder a 380. You can do teddy bear squats and then jump on a plinth.
Yeah.
You can't do that in the gym.
No,
So
no, you can't.
oh, it's super fun. That sort of shit is super fun.
So fun. And there is a method to that training. Like, I remember our dad, he looked at the video, he was just like, where do you come up with this stuff? And it's like, well, no, there's a principle to it, because you just did a max effort strength, and then usually your power is the thing to go first, right? And so we would do, I shouldn't say max, but a top end strength movement, and then have to rely on power afterwards, which is kind of backwards with the way the body works. So anyone that looks at it goes, that's ridiculous, until you try. You're like, wait a minute, no, you're supposed to do the jump first and the lift, because you have the power reserve. So there is a method to all that stuff, and it's just fun to find ways to work it in. And, you know, even if you're not having a great day, where we are, we're having a fire.
Still a great day.
Yeah, we're still having a beer. We're still peeing in the bushes, being dudes, and just having a really, really good time.
Nothing
That
like,
hits your like top 5.
It's always
peeing in the bushes down
and I
there,
get to pee in the bushes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do that at a gym. So.
there's nothing like the sun rays coming through the smoke through the fire. On a nice morning. Oh my god, that's my favorite part, walking in there. It's like a sacred ritual spot.
It's so cool. And like, I know we'll touch on the gathering later, but just on that note, like the morning we had our gathering, right on the river banks, like you were driving into the mist, like you literally, right as you got to where we were, you're driving through the mist, and you get to the site, and the air is so heavy, the smoke is lying low, and it's just really a really cool spot we have. But
yeah, we walk by there quite often because it's quite close to our house, my wife and I. And when we take the boys down, there's a playground that's near the picnic grounds down there. And every time we go by, I gotta walk in and just kind of go in, take a look around, check in on everybody, make sure all the stones are doing well. Like, it's like visiting friends, and like not lifting them because they're covered in snow, but I just have to check in. So just like being there. Yeah.
Well, Brian, how about you, man? Why don't you jump in, and because you're still relatively new to this, all things speaking, but this is kind of, we call it your second season almost, right?
Yeah,
and so, because you started with Troy's event last year in 2022, well, I guess 2 years ago now, but just turned 2023. But why don't you let us know about how this last year went for you?
So for me, one, like I think the first year it was very short notice. You and our friend Rory were like, hey, you should go do this, because I kind of fell out of powerlifting, and I was like, hey, I need to get back into something else. I need that goal, that mission, right? And then this year was awesome because like about managing expectations. So went in with like more of a plan, more structured. Like you helped me with some programming. Yeah. Went in and then actually end up hitting some PRs. Like when I shouldered that 280, that was a big PR for me.
It's
like
awesome.
That was a battle. Actually getting one of the few guys to actually get the log press. Right.
Yeah, that's
that
huge.
That was big. And then getting that 280 over the fence that's as tall as me. That was also another thing. Like you guys are all just lifting at your waist, and I'm like, oh, I got to shoulder press this again. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually something that's worth mentioning though, because your height being 5'4", your physiology is much different. It's much harder for you to get it up, and it makes you grind that much harder, man. And so I think a lot of people maybe with gigantic levers out there take for granted how much your body shape does make a massive difference.
You with your big levers out there. No, but
Troy's got his orang arm sticking out. You can't see that.
for some context like that, so this was a stone over bar battle back and forth where you stood across from somebody, 280-pound stone, and the bar was 42 inches tall. So, like, Brian, you pretty much had that thing on your neck and kind of, like, chucked it over. And you managed to get it back and forth a couple of times, which is awesome.
Yeah, it was unreal, man.
And then I died.
That was a ruthless event. Yeah, that was fun, man.
Well, did it 30 times or something crazy.
Yeah, that guy, that was the
Minotaur.
The Minotaur.
Ben the Minotaur. Yeah. The Minotaur. There was a gentleman who was, he's got to be 6'5", probably
310, 320.
Yeah. And I asked if he could crouch down so I could see if he had shaved down horns on his head, because I'm still convinced he's a Minotaur and just had his little cowtail tucked in his shorts. But super nice guy too, like one of the nicest guys.
Well, that's like funny is like when we're doing the shot put, we're all just taking turns, and that's when the chirps are really rolling.
Yeah. Really rolling.
I remember he was getting ready to go, and I was like, don't you have a maze you should be guarding? And he just like he had to stop like mid throw, and he's like, actually it's a labyrinth.
Like he was in on it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was. And so how about like with the year starting that way, Brian, how did that kind of carry momentum?
It surprised me. So like talking about like managing expectations, and then we went back to the garden over the summer, and then stuff like I wasn't able to do last year, like prime example, like the Netter stone.
Yeah.
That was my pinnacle last year. Like that was my battle. Now that's just like my training stone.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was like, okay, now this is my training weight. I'm moved up. And then
for some context, so for people who haven't seen on the Edmonton Stones of Strength Instagram page, there's a video of Brian battling with this 272-pound stone, and it's about a minute-long battle. And there are a couple of times it looks like you weren't going to get it, and then like you finally sort of dug real deep and you got this thing up. And it was such an epic battle that we named the stone the Netter stone after you. And now you're shouldering that thing and you're playing with it.
Yeah.
So a season later, you've gone from struggling to get it to chest to getting it to shoulder.
Yeah.
And that's actually the stone. Like when we talk about stone lifting, it doesn't. I've actually described this to many people, that battle you had, and say that's kind of the epitome for me of what stone lifting is. It doesn't matter who's the biggest, who's the strongest, who lifts the most weight. It's about the battle you have with the stone, and you had an unbelievable battle with that stone. And like for me, that is like the epitome of what it's about. Is that battle. And so it's just so cool to see you going from like Dale had said, you just getting it up to your chest 1 year to a year later, it's getting on your shoulder. Like that's huge progress.
Yeah, and like continuously showing up, lifting it, Whereas like last year was like it was a battle. Finally got it at the end. But like surprised me too is also this year was the Ironstone, standing up with that. Like that was a big jump.
It's 330 pounds.
Yeah,
for anyone listening.
And then the other one that really surprised me, that blew me away, was picking the devil's potato.
Getting wind under that, man.
Like getting wind under that. Like, I couldn't have done that.
Which is 409.
409. Yeah, confirmed. 409.
Handleless stone. So
it's not an easy stone to pick. Like there's very, very strong guys out there that haven't been able to lap it, and for you, Brian, to be able to get down and just get wind underneath that is unreal. Especially again, we talk about wingspan, because that's a big stone, man. Right. And so you are crouched over so much more than the rest of us are, and so that's a very, very big pull. And that's awesome, man.
It looks like Brian in a ball on the ground.
It does.
Yeah, we have the same back shape.
You do. Yeah, man, but it was a great year for you too, man. And especially you got to consider the fact that you were going through fire school and you were in a big life change this summer, and so there was an element of chaos to your life, and so to be able to keep coming to Stones and having some kind of constant and keeping religious with your training in that and staying with us is just awesome, man.
I would say like showing up like when we do our stone lifts on Saturdays, and we're very consistent with it. To me, it was a thing to look forward to. Like after having a week of training, or like even like a week of just sitting in a classroom and just being knowing like Saturday morning I'm gonna see the boys lift stones. Like it was my Christmas morning every week. It was awesome.
Yeah. it's my favorite thing. Like it's just every Saturday morning we know. Well, most Saturdays should say that we can get together, and it's always something.
It's that like early 20s anticipation of the night out, right? I'm gonna go out Saturday night, but it's like no, we're gonna go down and lift stones Saturday morning, and I'd program my weeks, my workouts a week to make sure that I had enough juice to make a good effort on Saturday. So
absolutely, man. Because you were. Was it this year or last year that you were overtraining almost? I think we had a conversation. I'm like, dude,
burning out.
I think you're doing too much work because you're burning the candles at both ends.
Yeah. I was trying to like push for like 2 a day. And it was just
You can't with stones. You just can't. It's too taxing.
No, they're very humbling.
They are. And Troy, well, how about you, man?
yeah, speaking of humble,
No doubt.
It's been a long year, man. Or it was a long year.
Yeah.
I was thankful for being able to run another successful show. That's always good. It's nice to see. Don't know if it'll be happening this year. And if it doesn't, I'll be helping Dave get the gathering be even bigger and better every single year. Lift wise, I started off the year in the spring. I finally stood with the potato.
Sure did.
And I will never lift that stone again.
You hate it. I love it, man.
No, yeah, it's that one is one of the banes of my existence, but I'm glad to have conquered that one. Shouldering the 357 Boreal Boulder, that was another big lift for me. The one motioning of the iron stone, the 335 stone to shoulder.
That's a mess. You showed me how to do that one, man, and you make it look so much easier than I do.
Just the levers, man. It's the levers.
And strength.
What else? I think one of my other favorite lifts is when we went down with that Hoos trainer. I think, 340, 350?
355.
355, and we took it for 80 feet.
Yeah.
And that's a really nice stone.
That
was a good walk. Yeah. Other than that, like the back half of the year, I've been just focusing on weight loss and getting into Muay Thai and doing different things. I haven't been doing much stone lifting in the later half of the year. But yeah, a successful year coming back down from like 260 to 220. So I've lost about
which is a feat in and of itself.
40 pounds. And just, a few weeks ago before the snow, we still met and I was still able to stand with the boulder. So I, even with the weight loss and not doing much of the strength training, I was still able to keep it, which is good.
It's fantastic.
I'm happy about that. So
there's also a couple that I forgot to mention, but it ties in directly with you, Troy. So there's a couple stones that I found, and one was 393, and one is like 403 or 404.
Yes.
One is big red, and one is, I forget what we call it. It's
the gray stone.
The gray stone. Like, not super intricate names, but these two stones the handles on them are absolute dog shit. And I'm gonna be honest, like I just don't think that I would have got them if I wasn't there with you, because Troy and I would say we're at the same level with our stone lifts, but we both lift very differently. And so having each other there to bounce ideas, well, try this handle, let's try that handle. And a difficult handle on a 300-pound stone is one thing, but when you start getting into that 400-pound range, when you have just a couple little tiny angles and finger holds to get on it's very, very challenging, especially at our body weight, right? Like I'm at that time I was about 212, 213. You were come down a bit to about 225.
235, 230, something.
When you're that weight and just using chalk, we're not talking about world's strongest men guys that are the same weight as those stones using tacky to lift these natural stones. It gets really challenging. And so I think having each other there as each other's equal, but also we pushed each other. I just don't think I would be where I am right now, and I don't think that I would have done the lifts that I had done, especially those two, if you weren't there with me and we were working on those together. So for me, I think those were some of my favorite days too, when we would just go down and we would grind over one stone, dissect a stone, and spend like, I don't know, what is it fair to say, at least an hour, closer to an hour and a half maybe, on one stone, just trying to break the puzzle on it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm thankful that we've been able to train together and kind of push each other. It's true though, we lift every single stone basically the complete opposite, and it's the other fascinating thing about stones. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure that big red stone is a bicep terror. Me and you both had really, really sore biceps the next day for quite a while.
It was probably close to a month until it felt normal
Yeah.
again because it just got so tight. Yeah.
Those are the kind of stones that, they're 400 pounds. You have to be at the top of your game, and you need to have been training lots, or else you're going to rip it right off the bone. But yeah, those two stones are a huge pain. The other stones that were nice were the memorial stones for Chris from the gathering, which, not the heaviest stones, but very important stones that we all lifted in the summer. So again, I guess it was just a great year overall with stone lifting. So
you also had some bad days too, like the day with the wasps.
yes.
We got to share that story.
So this story, it was just Troy and I. We're down at the garden. We had a whole morning of lifts. We're probably there for like a good 2 hours. And he's like, I want to go get this one stone before we leave. So we go down, just like about 100 meters outside of the path. So we go to this one stone, and it's right next to this outhouse. And Troy's going to find, I can't remember what stone that was.
It ended up being the Sawyer stone. The 330, or it's 322, pardon me. And it's very...
Sawyer stone.
Yeah.
But it has terrible handles.
It's similar to the full circle stone at Drittvik in shape, as close as any two stones could be.
And Troy's like, he's fighting with it. He's fighting. And I've never seen Troy lose his shit.
He's always calm.
And he was like, this is bullshit. I lifted this yesterday. Why can't I get this stone? And he got so mad, he punches the outhouse and it immediately erupts with a million wasps. Next thing you know, it's just Troy sprinting down the path and all these wasps chasing after him. This cloud. I didn't get not a single one on me. He comes back. He's like gray skin. His blood pressure's probably dropped. He's all like woozy. He's like, oh.
Well, I got stung.
I'm scream laughing like an asshole.
That was amazing. That was the perfect instant karma moment that kind of shut me right up. But yeah, I got stung. I felt woozy. It was amazing. I got lit up by a bunch of wasps.
The best is it's just so out of character for you because you're so calm and chill all the time, and the one time you lose your cool, you get destroyed by wasps.
It's a lesson. It's an instant karma. Just like stop it.
Keep your cool, Padawan.
Yeah, man.
So
that
funny.
was a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Dale.
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess this is my second season, I guess if you could call it, with stone lifting. And, started off the year, I signed up for Troy's Alberta Strongest Viking competition. It's the first sort of any strength-related competition. I grew up wrestling and that kind of thing, but an actual, strength competition. So... And at the time, early this year, David and I had sort of started tossing back and forth the idea of starting a podcast. And I had made up my mind that I wasn't going to permit myself to be on a podcast talking about strength and stone lifting and that sort of thing if I went out to this competition and sort of just embarrassed myself. So a little bit of a fire into my ass, and I sort of dove really hard into training. And there were a couple of events that
You did very well.
You did unreal.
There was a couple of events I had no experience with, like a Denny ring hold, the log press too. Like I had no experience pressing logs. For Christmas, my parents got me an actual handle log that I then started loading up and training with here as well.
But let's hold on. Let's cover what Troy's log press in the competition was, though, because that's very different than an actual log.
Yeah.
It was literally just a tree. Yes. I just cut a tree.
No handles.
The bark on it, 170 pounds. That's it.
I think it ended up being 180.
Something like that.
Yeah, man. It was gnarly. And so I think I won that event with 6 presses, and I think you tied for second with 2 or 3.
I had 3.
3.
Yeah.
And so there's 20 guys there. Okay, and a number of them were, guys that have been competing in strongman competitions for years. Some of them were strength coaches. Okay, and you come out of nowhere, your first competition, and you tie for second place. So that's
for that event.
No, I know, but still, that's
sure.
what I'm talking about. It's incredible, man.
Yeah, no. So I put a lot into the training. I think maybe something I learned too is that to Brian's point about doing too much and burning the candle at both ends. I have a very sedentary job, and so I'm going from that into these fairly hard training sessions, and probably overdid a little bit too much and tweaked my back. And it's something that I've sort of been contending with and trying to recover from all year. And it was that sort of journey of mental maturity where I was trying to get out there and grind out sessions and work through pain and train and improve my stone lifting as much as I could over the year while not really attending to this sort of nagging back injury. And as I have sort of stepped back and started trying to sort of piece by piece figure out why I have this ache here and this ache here and ache here, I've really learned a lot about my body and my limits. That maybe it was a good thing that it sort of happened the way that it did, and it wasn't a major injury.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I sit a lot for work, and it was funny. Like a lot of this, so, I kind of tweaked my back a little bit, and in the competition, that tweak was still there, but I kind of worked through it. And then, having trouble, it's for my job, I kind of sit 7 hours a day. And I was trying to figure out, like, it feels way better if I sit with my left ankle over my right knee in a bit of a figure 4 position. That's kind of alleviated that pressure on my back and let me work sort of pain-free. And I kept sitting like that, and I started noticing, like what's going on? Like, why do I have on all of my work pants, I've got this like wear spot over the right knee. Like, I was like, is that when I'm like kneeling down to put my kids' shoes? I'm like, what's going? But it's because I was constantly sitting like that, and because I was sitting in that static position for so long, my glutes became completely inactive and so tight, and so. For the past 3 or 4 months, I've been trying to sort of train my glutes, reactivate them, because what's happened as I've been doing that is now I've got this QL pain because the QL is overcompensating for glutes that weren't allowing my hips to work properly. So I've learned a ton about my anatomy. I used to just think like, oh, there's your shoulders and your upper back and your lower back and your ass and your legs, but it's so much more intricate, and I've learned a lot about now mobility and stretching and things that I used to probably just push to the side in favor of a heavy training session previously. So now I'm really working on mobility, working on strength in odd angles, something I think I'm going to start to feather in, and I'm sure some of our...
That's huge.
I'm going to start trying to rock climb once a week. So that's sort of real dynamic stretching and things like that, because I also do happen to have tight lats. So trying to find other activities that I can do instead of what I was trying to do earlier this year and through the winter, stone lifting. But what are these accessory things I can be doing to sort of unlock my ability to lift stones at my full potential? So
and that's why mobility is often overlooked, or shouldn't, be overlooked by a lot of people, because there's so much strength through range of motion. And if you can't access that range of motion, then you can't access that strength that's there.
In a lot of ways, I was lifting stones all summer with glutes that weren't firing, and so I lifted some good stones at the gathering. Like I did a teddy bear squat with the 330, and I had some pretty good lifts. But I just think I kept on thinking, like, I've got to have more. Like I'm bottoming out on stones that last year I was also able to do. So I didn't really there wasn't a stone I lifted this year that I was unable to lift last year. I was a little bit stronger and more efficient at lifting some of those stones this year, whether or not it was an actual strength thing or I'm just, learning the stones a bit more. But with that too, like, I've been working a lot more. So if my back is achy, I'll do forearms, or I'll do wrist strength, or I'll find ways to work around it and
that's
really sort of
intuitive thing that Troy talks about, right?
Yeah. And so, like, to throw an analogy that I'm sure Brian will appreciate, this winter I'm rebuilding the engine. So piece by piece, trying to figure out what's working, what's not. I'm looking forward to be able to get back to lifting pain-free. But yeah, I mean, I've got, there were some great lifts in there. Yeah, the log press I was pretty thrilled with. And then, the other big thing this year was we started this podcast. And it was sort of just an idea because David and I love talking about stones. And there were so many cool people that were in the stone lifting community that we had visibility to through Instagram that we wanted to be able to talk with. But it'd be kind of weird for us just to be like, hey, David Killen, hey, Ryan Stewart, hey, Sean Urquhart, hey, Dr. Bill Crawford, like, can we just chat to you about stones? But by way of a podcast, we had an avenue to engage with these people and then also share their stories with everyone. It kind of went from, we have nearly 1,000 people, which isn't a ton when you talk about the grand scheme of Instagram, where a viral video can, of someone doing something stupid can garner thousands and thousands of followers. But 1,000 dedicated stone lifting enthusiasts means a lot that people care about the content. And then also, like, we have people from over 31 countries that tune in and listen to our episodes. So it sort of talks about the global reach of stone lifting. And so that's something, in light of being able to really contribute to growing my own stone lifting strength, been able to do it in other ways. So
it's fantastic. And, and people, I don't know anyone else that really has a podcast. And so when people go, oh, you have a podcast, I almost don't even like that word. I just go, you know what? No, it's me and my brother. We get to talk to cool people that like the same stuff as we do from around the world. Yeah. It's conversations, right? Yeah. There's no major format. This isn't a show, right? We're not putting on a performance. This is just, let's have a conversation of bullshit about the stuff that we like.
Yeah, and we love doing it. So for everyone who's followed us on Instagram, who shares our content, who listens to the episodes, who tags us in their lifts, we just love being a part of this community. And so, that's sort of 2023. But I mean, 2024 on to bigger, better, heavier things. Dave, what is in your sights? Considering you crushed all your PRs last year.
Yeah, I don't really know at this point particularly. Like, I got some stuff in mind, but I don't even want to say it because it might never happen. Just keep pushing it.
Put it out there, then you're committed.
No,
we're all going to hold you to
well,
it.
as the winter goes on, I'm trying to focus more on the fundamentals, the barbell lifts. I noticed this past year, like I did, when COVID was going on, I did a ton of steel bending, horseshoe snapping, all this kind of stuff, and my grip and wrist strength was very, very good. But since I've stopped doing that, I've noticed definitely it diminish. And so the last couple months, I've been picking it up again, and I'm responding well. So I want to go back to those fundamentals. I've definitely neglected so this is what's interesting, because I know you don't need to do barbell training to be good at stone lifting. There's no doubt. Troy's a great example of that. He's probably one of the best stone lifters on the planet, and he does no barbell training. But I have neglected barbell training, and I've seen some deficits because of that. So I'm trying to go back to the fundamentals of that, still keeping up with stone lifting. And if anyone's seen any of my posts, I try and do a lot more time under tension and rep work, because I truly feel, this is my personal opinion, but when you're a smaller guy, and want to do big shouldering in particular, you need to get time under tension, right? And I really feel that's the way to unlock a lot of strength, because that builds that grit, that little voice in your head when that stone's been on your chest for 10 seconds that says, get this off, this sucks, you're dying because you're strangling yourself. Yeah. You got to work through that. So basically, for the first start of this year, is I'm just going to keep trying to get my reps, my time under tension up, and then I guess we'll see what the summer brings. Really hoping, I don't know exactly how it would work, but if a stone trip of some sort could work, and if not, definitely just continue growing the Edmonton Stones of Strength, and to work with you three beauties and Sarah, who's the last one of us who's not here, but she's up in northern Saskatchewan right now, but work on developing the gathering. And this past year, it was the same amount of people as our first year, but we had people flying from across the country for it, which to me doesn't make sense.
So
I think
cool.
A number of people flew like almost 3,000 kilometers. So for a lot of people, like, Canada's big. If you don't know the geography of Canada, it's really, really big. I think it's bigger than Australia by quite a bit, and Australia's a continent.
I've driven across Canada twice, and it's 11-day drive.
There you go. And so for people to, that's ridiculous, but for people to fly so far to come lift with us in our spot means like so much. And so I just keep hoping to grow what the product that we have here, not that it's a product we're selling, but just, to make it worth people coming for our event to enjoy this amazing community that's really taking off here because of what we're doing.
Yeah, and maybe to touch on that too, because I think maybe some people don't understand how low the barrier to entry is to be able to hold your own event, especially an event like that where you're not having to bring in implements and bring in judges like at the gathering. And this is our sort of northern gathering here in Canada, not to be misconstrued with the one that happens in Scotland.
We're nowhere near like that.
Yeah, but it's not a judged event. You don't win. There's no points. It's just people coming out and pushing themselves to do the best lifts they can for the different events for that day. And that's why it breeds such positivity. And so the Stones were there. We just decided on what the events were going to be. We had, Troy and Dave were there sort of keeping things moving and making sure that they were getting the stones set up for the next lifters. And Ben was also helping out. And so many people that weren't stone lifters left that event having been bitten by the bug, and immediately within a week or two are tagging us in posts of them having gone out and got stones that they put in their backyard and they started lifting. Like, so many people got down there were like, this is so awesome.
Yeah.
They loved it. Yeah. It was awesome. And it took really a bit of time, really no money, and it helped grow the community. So for anyone out there who's doesn't have, and I'm fortunate to say that fortunate and unfortunately for others, there's not a lot of people that have the kind of strong stone lifting community that we have yet. I think it's growing in a lot of places, and there are other places that have an even bigger community. But it's something that you can really grow off of your own back, and quite easily if you just put in a little bit of legwork. So,
or even like the first year we had
speaking of backs,
speaking of backs, we had to make signs the first year just to guide people through the park to find the site. Whereas like this year, we didn't even have to. Everyone knew where it was because everyone who's been interacting or has been making appearances, and even like we have people who didn't even do the event who still come to the site. Like Kyle was coming out, like he got the bug by it. I had some military friends. Like, remember when Emma came out that one morning?
I wasn't there that day.
Yeah.
But
So she's like giving contact. She's like, a 110-pound marathon runner.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I'll come out, try this thing. And then she got the bug, and she kept fighting with like little 130-pound stone all morning till she eventually got it, and she was pumped.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so cool to see. And that's something, so David, you talk about too with training for the sort of grit aspect. And, you know, stone lifting is one of those things that doesn't create grit, it reveals grit. You either have it or you don't, and stone lifting is going to be that litmus test. And for the people who do have grit, they love it and they keep coming back. That's why you see we've seen people come through the Granite Garden that very incredibly strong gym lifters, but they struggle with stones and they hate it and they never came back.
There was one guy in mind. He's a very, very strong dude. He's an Olympic lifter, and this is nothing to do with Olympic lifting, don't get me wrong, but he had goals in mind when he came there.
Yeah.
He'd been training Olympic lifting, was it about 10 years, something
He's
like that?
a personal trainer too.
Very strong, and just
talked a lot of game.
had his ass handed to him because he just had no idea what he was getting into. It's a whole different world.
Yeah.
And he just lacked that. Like, we've talked about this a ton. Like, it's one thing to hit a deadlift max. Deadlift max takes 6, 7, 8 seconds, and at that point you'll be passed out. A squat max, by the time you walk it out, whatever, something similar. But a max stone lift can be 40 plus seconds.
Yeah.
There's nothing that compares to
and
that.
if it's not, it's probably not your max.
True. Yeah, well, fair enough, man. Yeah,
right.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You're all like 6-second one motion over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's also really cool just seeing the people who've never done it, but they're naturals, and you can tell it's like you need to do this more. You've got what it takes to be a really proficient lifter, and not everybody has that, but it's super cool seeing people do things for the first time and kick ass at it.
Well, it was Dale, but yeah,
Like Dale,
we
there's
saw
a
a
couple
bunch of it
other
at
guys
the event,
at the gathering that were like right away. You'd be like, if you keep with it, you're gonna be great.
There was the
guy with the long hair.
I wish I
tall guy,
remember his
yeah.
name.
Tall
This
guy.
guy was
He
unreal.
was really wicked, yeah. Stuff like that is just super hype to see. It's
It
awesome.
is.
Like, it's just, I don't want to say like real strength, but it is. It's like, to me, it's like functional real strength.
Yes.
And some people just have that naturally, innately. And
Yeah.
it's super cool to see it come out when they don't even expect it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Because he was one of the stronger lifters there.
Yeah,
he
he
had
was
zero experience.
Crazy
Yeah.
strong.
He just needed a little bit of direction, and
It was
he
also
was
fun
fantastic.
watching like people push themselves. Like
it's
really,
the
but like
best.
we had Dan blacked out at one.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
That was the only time I've seen that with stone lifting.
Yeah.
No,
Hit the deck.
there was the guy who did it at Troy's event too.
Oh yes, that's right,
Yeah.
Mac.
Oh, Mac, yeah.
Mac who went stone to shoulder.
Alberta's
and
strongest
then-
panda, yeah.
And then back to the floor.
And then
for
seized
good.
out, yeah.
Yeah, he did. That's right.
But again, like max effort.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, man, push yourself to the wall. That's what you're doing.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
it is,
Yeah,
and it
to the
takes
floor, But a bunch. Thank you.
But I just, this is actually perfect because we're talking about the gathering. Yeah, it stinks in here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad energy in here.
I heard one squeak out.
Yeah, there's a little squeaker here. I don't know who that was. But just talking about the gathering this year and to what it's grown to, we all got the fart giggles here. This is normal. But so
This is normal. None of this is normal.
So the gathering this year was a fantastic success. We had people come from all over the country, but we had a number of people come from across the country for this. And a few years ago, there was no stone lifting culture here. And Troy is actually the one that, in my opinion, I loved hearing anyone argue otherwise, but Troy brought the stone lifting culture to Edmonton. It's something we covered in Troy's episode, but in case you didn't hear it, like it was stuff that was absolutely on my radar. I already had Dinny pins and, wanted to go to Scotland, but Troy was the one that, got a collection of stones, and then he started holding an event, and that was really cool, and then he held another event, and then we started Edmonton Stones of Strength, and then from that, we started holding a gathering, and then we started a podcast, and now this is the Edmonton Stones of Strength. This podcast has been listened to in over 31 countries, and the Edmonton Stones of Strength is featured in GQ, and like all these really wild things are happening and very quickly, and so
Unexpected.
And the point I'm getting to with this is, this all happened in only a couple of years. So anybody listening out there, like Dale said, there's $0 entry fee to this. Do some research in your areas. I've spent easily, dozens and dozens of hours in the bush, and it takes time to do this, but it costs $0, and it's fun. And so anyone out there, you can do your own thing. Who knows what you can get to in a couple of years? Because you know what, if you'd asked me the first time I went to your warehouse, Troy, it would have been just 3 years ago now. I tried that, the first real stone lifting with you. If I would have thought I'd be sitting where I am now with all the things that have happened, I would have laughed my ass off. What are you talking about? But just for anyone listening, go for it. Like, just set up your own stuff. Who knows where it'll end up?
Yeah, and for some context, like Troy's got a warehouse where that's our winter training ground. So our typical Granite Garden Saturday gatherings actually turn into Saturday gatherings at Troy's warehouse where he has a ton of stones. So it was something that really sort of helped us tide over the long cold months in Edmonton and keep training. So, Brian, what's on the calendar for you?
Well, the one Nisbet stone, because we've been talking about that for a while. I'll come lift it when it's not minus 28. And
my garage is unheated, and the Canadian winters get cold.
Then I have we haven't weighed it yet, but I have a stone in my backyard that I've been fighting with. I've only stood up with it a few times, and I'm guessing it's mid threes is my guess. It might be less, but it's I think it's a good lifting stone. But I also have a couple in the basement, in my basement gym. I have one I call the Tombstone, and this thing is smooth everywhere. And it's probably only about 260, but I really like it for training because it's really helping build like grip strength, forearm strength, and like really building that squeeze. Which is really nice. And then I also have like this little like red 180-pound stone, which I just put into like my workouts, and it's got really good handles, so it's really good for just sitting there just working on those reps, right? Yeah. But for this year, I definitely want to get more work with the Devil's Potato. I want to stand with the Nesbitt Stone, and that'd be my two biggest one. I want to get some more air under that potato because that really, I don't know, drove something into me to be like, hey, I can do this. But first year, I was like,
big lift, man.
But first year, I was like, I look at that stone, I'm like, I'll never lift that.
Yeah.
Right. But then this year it moves. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We got something here, right? Yeah. So
that's the hardest test with a stone like that, where you could try to lift it off the ground and it doesn't move, and that means that you are 5 years out from getting it. Or you could try and lift it and it doesn't move, and that means you're a couple of weeks out from getting it. And you sort of bridge that gap, and you're on the other side now, knowing like you have the capability of putting wind under the stone, like your strength base is there. So
yeah, well, that's good.
Awesome.
Troy, what are you feeling, man?
So I guess over the winter, I'm still going to be doing my Muay Thai stuff. I've been doing a lot of more like calisthenics stuff. My workouts on off days right now are just like hundreds of push-ups and like try to get like 100 pull-ups in a session and like skipping and stuff. So just it's really helping like the mobility and the way that my body feels, which is important. I needed to get a little bit healthier. So yeah, that's the goals for the short term. Stone wise, I would love to shoulder the Agaili next year. I think it's
doable.
Very doable.
Yeah. I think if I focus on it, it'll get done. That's really the only thing I would really like to tackle. Get as close as I can to a 400-pound shoulder before I'm no longer able to do it. And then it'll be a nice story one day. But
yeah, lots of years before you're done with that, man.
But yeah, I think something like that I think is a good thing to shoot for. I've done most of the things that I've wanted to do with the other stones around the site. Agaili.
Well, I think like even beyond like strength goals, I think a goal I look forward to is like us doing a stone trip together.
Yeah,
I would love that, man. Yeah, we've got to find a way to do that. Wherever it be, Iceland would be ideal. Yeah, but who knows what the years will bring, man. We got to find a way to do it.
It could be that, or we just pack up a camper van and drive down to Utah or something. Like there's options
Utah
now,
would be
which
wild, man.
fortunately because of the growing stone culture in North America, if you don't have the means or can't line up the schedules to make that international stone trip, you can do it domestically, which is super exciting. So
yeah, that would be wicked.
What about for you?
Yeah, it's just a bit of take the winter months to sort of take a step back and rebuild. I guess something I kind of failed to mention about 2023 is part of the whole inactive glutes, hamstrings are tightening up. I also ended up tearing my calf in July. So
playing with your kids.
Yeah, like after a day of sitting nonstop and probably didn't drink enough water and was chasing my kids at the park, and I felt and heard a pop. and then I tried to put weight on my left calf, and I immediately knew that like this was a problem. It was not just a little strain; it was a level 2 tear. So luckily the whole muscle didn't come off the bone, but it was pretty close. And so, and that probably didn't help with this issue of being too sedentary during the day, because I end up just sitting for, a couple of weeks trying to recover. So, just sort of trying to.
Yeah, but then the next day you're doing weighted pull-ups, so
You gotta find ways to do things. Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't seen it on David's Instagram page, like he has done those anchored stones, and so I have one here as well. And so I like to throw on the weight vest and do those. Like you can, and that's the thing for people is even if we talk about like if you don't have access to training with stones all the time, there are things that you can do, very simple, cheap, practical implements that you can have at your house that replicate some of those critical points of stone lifting. And that was one that I knew just from having in Scotland when we were there. The one stone that I failed, like I got the Ardverlick to my knees 4 times. I didn't have the squeeze strength to get it up to my lap. I think if I did, I probably would have been able to stand with it. But
for sure,
I need to work on my forearms, and I need to work on that squeeze strength. So that was something, there are ways I can do that here without actually training with large, heavy, round stones. But yeah, it's just doing a bit of a rebuild, hoping that I can get back to lifting pain-free. And even for a while there, like couldn't sit for more than 10 minutes without getting lower back pain. So just trying to figure out like all the things contributing to it, make sure I'm being a little more systematic about addressing those things, and then also avoiding that reoccurring in the future, because it has been a very frustrating, long process, and something I want to make sure I'm more, I'm smarter about going forward. But I think for next year, there's a couple of stones I would love to shoulder the Shaw stone, which is a 300-pound stone. Yeah. I've done 280 before. I think it's doable, especially given the shape. And then the Boreal Boulder, which is a 356-pound, it's a bastard of a stone. It's smooth. It doesn't have very good handles. That's a stretch goal for me this year. But I think if I can stay healthy, I think it's probably doable. I think that would be a end of the summer, PR attempt.
Or late fall or late spring. You never know, man.
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah,
2 weeks later, like Dave.
David Keown and I were talking about you before, and I said, I think he siphoned all of the strength genes out of the pool before I was conceived.
Because your other brother's tiny.
He's super
lean.
strong.
Yeah, he is very strong.
He's strong. Yeah.
But you've also learned how to eat properly now. You're up about 10 or 15 pounds.
Yeah, so after I decided I was going to sort of take a step back and work on more fundamentals, because one thing that sort of from my wrestling background, I have fairly decent explosive strength, but where I start to fail with stones is when it turns into that sort of the fight, right? The sort of like real grunt strength. Like if I'm not getting it up to my knees with an explosive move off the ground, then I'm really going to struggle and probably fail getting the stone up. So I've been working, I started working more on heavy deadlifts, and then the calf tear happened, and that kind of set things back. But since then, I've been on a bit more of a regimented strength program, and actually started working with a coach for the first time in my life. And, have stopped caring so much about trying to be lean and whatever the other things that are maybe more important when you might be caught with your shirt off in the summertime. Like when it's minus 30 outside, that's not a very high probability occurrence. In the Canadian winter, I've been eating a lot more. And in the past couple of months, I've put on about 12 pounds. And and the lifts that I'm able to do right now as I'm sort of doing this rebuild, my strength has gone up quite a bit. So curious to see how that translates to stone lifts. And I think really, helping you guys a bit more with the gathering coming up. I think it'd be great to get out to some of the Scottish festivals here in Edmonton. Maybe take some stones there, have some T-shirts, give people a chance to test their hand, because there's a lot of great, heavy athletes there that, throwing athletes and Highland game athletes that I think some of them, if they had the opportunity to try lifting stones, would love it, right? It's just exposing as many people as possible to this awesome activity, because it's been very enriching. And I think the more I just think so many people, if we were able to tap into a greater community of people and give them more awareness, there would be just so many people whose lives would hugely benefit in many ways, right? The community aspect, the strength and the health aspect of it. And then the podcast, there's so many cool people that we want to be able to shine a light on their stories. And so I think this coming year, it'll be trying to be a bit more consistent and just improving quality and
62 countries.
62, exactly. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah,
there we go.
exactly. Yeah, so definitely looking forward to this coming year. And I guess if we were to sort of circle back to 2023, if you guys had to say, with pertaining to stone lifting, what would be one key lesson or takeaway that you gathered in 2023 more so than any other previous years?
For the specifics of the lifting element of it.
Yeah, what was a particular breakthrough moment where you just had an aha moment that has stuck with you?
And so I've mentioned this before. It's for me because I was looking to really work on my shouldering this year and time under tension. Again, I'm repetitive, but it's for me, at least the way that I am, that was massive. I went from like a 325 max stone to shoulder to a 380 in a very short period of time, a few months. And I did not get that much percentage stronger.
Right.
I got that much percentage tougher because I worked at it and I got tougher with it. I knew that I could handle it. My body could support it. So
you're training your body to be okay with that fight or flight response.
To tolerate the discomfort. And well, there's that. And there's also learning how to shift your weight, ensure you're not leaning too far back and you're not leaning that much far forward. But the time under tension, what happens is when you get that up there, it allows you to find where's the smooth spot. When I'm in this kind of an arch position back, where is the weight distribution over my midfoot? And so for me, because that was my goals this year, right? Like
too much on the toes, too much on the
right,
heels.
because a lot of people get too far forward. They'll be like, okay, I'm squeezing. This is too much. They go, their arms will give out because they're too far forward and their arms are squeezing too much of a row in. That doesn't work. Or they're too far backwards and they're unbalanced. You got to find. There's the balance point, there's the strength point, and there's just the toughness point, and you cannot recreate the toughness side of it without having that weight on your chest.
Right.
And so for me, that was my biggest aha of all this because I didn't lift last year. I finished 2022 with lifting the potato, and that was a max effort. I've done that a number of times this year. So I didn't actually lift a heavier stone to chest, but my shouldering went from 300 pounds to 380 pounds. And so for sure, that was my big breakthrough or the thing that I went, oh shit, okay, this is very important for this.
Yeah, and you actually just had a recent post where you have a video where you essentially, is it with the Nisbet stone, 325 pound stone, you get it up to your chest and you essentially stand there with that stone on your chest for about 10 seconds.
For
so
sure.
You don't have to be incrementally increasing the weight of the stone that you're shouldering. It's doing things like that that'll help you break through those ceilings.
And the thing with that is it really, because when you're hoisting a stone up to your shoulder, you're kind of getting a bit of a rebound in your body. Like if you're getting all of that. And so when you put it to your shoulder, when you put it to your chest and stand there, you basically lose all of that momentum you have going at all. It's crushing your chest, you're having a hard time breathing, you're getting tired, the lactic acid is building, and then you still got to find the oomph to get it to your shoulder, right? And so it kind of, all of those natural instincts of hiking it up and keeping your energy and momentum going are gone.
Right. Yeah.
So again, I know I harp on it, but I really, truly feel, especially for us smaller guys, because I'm not a big dude, that really, really helps. So, yeah, how about you, Brian?
Like you're talking about like the time under tension. So that's something I've been really been putting into my training. So something like I'm doing right now. I do like little circuits, like a 45-minute circuit where I'm doing like a minute of work with 30 seconds rest. I time it. But when I'm using stones, it's like I'm making sure like if I'm either doing squats with a stone, like a lighter stone, or if I'm doing picks with a stone, or if I'm just trying to stone to chest, staying with it for the whole minute. Like it's not touching the ground for that whole minute. Yes. And like just committing to that discomfort.
Yes, that's awesome.
Like I heard a great quote, like you just pull the trigger and unload the clip, right? So like you just stay in it, right?
You're gonna
like,
go for it, yeah.
And but at the same time also knowing like, hey, this is, you okay? Like just knowing, like what Troy was saying, like when you have a good day, push it. Right? Mm-hmm. And if you're having a day, you're like, okay, I am not feeling it today, but I'm still going to get in the work, dial it back and get in those reps, right? So, but my biggest thing is like time under tension. That's the biggest thing I've noticed an improvement on, especially for grip strength.
Well said, man. Very good.
Troy.
Don't punch outhouses in the woods. Besides that, I think just like tempering expectations, with weight loss, and kind of shifting a little bit towards other things, just, tempering expectations in that aspect I had to work on. But yeah, I think just being smart with training as well. I think it's just, we've said it 100 times. Go out there and do what you can do. Don't overtrain. You're gonna be better off just taking your time versus overtraining and getting hurt and feeling like shit every single day. So tempering expectations, just give it what you got on the day. That's basically it.
Wise athlete speaking right there.
Yeah. So for me, it's use a standing desk while at work. To be honest, like you'll see. So I also, I have a hybrid work environment where I'm part-time in the office and part-time at home, and my desk is over there, and it's a full standing position, and I try to stand all day now, which has also had benefits. But the big thing for me, and I mean this sort of speaks to things that we talked to Troy about in episode 5. David, you guys actually both did a good breakdown, as well as the episode 8 with Keith Surratt. Like this may seem in its core like just an absolute like a grunts activity where you just get, it's the biggest, the most muscly, the strongest gym athlete's going to be able to come out and throw around the biggest stone. But that's not true, and there's a way that you can be analytical in breaking down those failure points with your stone lifts and find creative ways to improve them that you can do outside of just lifting stones. And I think that's, for me, especially again like in this period where I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of heavy lifts, is being a bit more analytical and thoughtful of how to shore up those weaknesses in my stone lifting before it becomes summer and you can get back out and actually start lifting stones. So for me, is being a bit more analytical in your approach to something that may look to be a very simple, straightforward task, because it's not. Like you've talked about taking hours to figure out how to lift a specific stone. Yeah. And so it is a very analytical endeavor. Don't let anybody fool you and convince you otherwise.
It can take that long though. It really can to learn it, and because the balance can be so tricky. And again, me and Troy had a lot of fun, and at least I thought it was fun. But doing that together, right? Because it's such an interesting. That's the aspect of the strength puzzle, right?
I think it gets more intricate the deeper you get into it.
Sure.
It's relatively easy when you get into it to go from 100 pounds to 200 pounds to 250, but when you start peaking as a human being with your physical limits, like getting 400 pounds off the ground becomes way more analytical and a puzzle. So it's more rewarding the longer you do it.
I would completely agree.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, any closing thoughts, gentlemen? It's been a pretty incredible year, so thank you guys, and anybody listening too. Like, this has been a wild ride. We've been having so much fun with this and with stone lifting and with this sort of growing local and global community, and we're just hoping that we can help keep pushing the momentum. There's a bunch of people out there too that Avasti Mady, who is one of the founders of the New England Stones of Strength group Instagram page. They've got an awesome Instagram page too. If anyone hasn't looked, check it out. He had perfectly coined that there are people in the community like the David Kiowens, like the Ryan Stewarts, like the Sean Urquharts, that are force multipliers, right? They take something that has exposure to a very niche community, and they're just sort of blowing the doors off and spreading it to a much greater populace. So thank you to everyone else in the community who is doing their part in growing this, and let's keep it going. Let's keep the momentum going.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Onwards and upwards.
Thanks, boys.
And get out there, find a stone, pick it, lift it, pull the trigger, unload the clip.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please be so kind as to leave the show a review, and then follow us over on Instagram at stonesofstrength_.